Okay, so I listened to the phone call, the snippets of the phone call that were in the video. And it doesn't have anything new. In fact, Biden is on tape bragging about getting Shokin fired years ago. He's not ashamed of it. He said he put pressure on Ukraine to get a corrupt prosecutor fired. And in fact, the tapes, your source itself, the New York Post, a Fox News newspaper, says that the guy who released these tapes trying to get Biden in trouble, that the leaker has ties to both the Russian government and Rudy Giuliani. So, I mean, I don't know what more this is supposed to add. That that all that the vast majority of the legit news sources say that Shokin was a corrupt prosecutor.
You done?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the interesting thing to me, again, is how, I'm sorry, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but how you lie to yourself. You see, the most important part of this conversation, the part that you left out, even though you heard it, even though the words came through your ears into your head, it in this conversation, the president of the Ukraine says two things. He says, despite the fact that we found no evidence of corruption whatsoever from Shokin, and no evidence that he'd done anything.
That's the president before the current president, right? Yeah. Poroshenko says that.
No, so you're interrupting me.
Okay.
You don't like this, so you're interrupting me. So I'll say it again. The man that fired Shokin says that he's assuring Biden that he found no evidence of corruption from Shokin, and that he had done nothing wrong, no bad things from Shokin. But even though, he still asked him to resign. And he resigned. So my point is, the person in the best position to know, not the Democrat media that lies to you, not Biden, who's apparently lying, but the actual man that fired him, admits in the phone call that Shokin was not corrupt. The man that is in the best position to know says that Shokin was not corrupt, and he tells Biden this in the phone call.
Okay.
And even though he tells Biden this, Biden says, great, indicating that he's glad that he forced him to resign, and that now they would get the $1 billion.
That's okay.
That's of no. Okay, so that changes nothing in your mind, huh?
No,
you still
because
think
I've read about Shokin, and I've read about the recent history of Ukraine. So all you have to do, if you're interested in finding out about Shokin, is Google Shokin, Shokin, and you'll see the majority opinion on Shokin. And that's all you have to do.
Rick, you will see that a lot of Democrats have managed to smear Shokin in order to get Biden elected. And they're all over.
It's not just Democrats, it's people from dozens of countries, dozens of European countries.
Yeah, no, actually, the one most important person is the president of the Ukraine, who fired him, and he says that he hadn't done anything wrong. Why did he say that, Rick?
I don't know. But just read about Shokin. All you have to do. All you have to do. Don't take my word for it. Don't take Lance's word for it. Just read about Shokin. That's all you have to do.
Rick, listen to me. You have to understand evidence. Okay? You have to deal with people honestly. Now, I know that if I type in Google, especially the Google on your computer, I'll get 50 articles from Democrats saying that Shokin was a bad man. But what overrides that, what's more important than that, Rick, is I have the actual words of the president of the Ukraine in a phone conversation. You can't get any better evidence than that. The fact that some left-wing dude writes that Shokin was corrupt. Well, no, wait a minute. Wait. That's hearsay. A reporter for a liberal magazine writing that Shokin is corrupt is not as good evidence as the actual man that fired him. And by the way, when he made that phone call conversation, he didn't know it was going to be released.
Okay,
it was
but
released by his successor.
we're not going to keep going round and round on this. But the deal is that don't just take a reporter's
wait a
word
minute.
for it.
Why is it? Wait a minute. Wait. Why don't you believe the president of the Ukraine who actually fired Shokin, who says that Shokin didn't do anything wrong? Why don't you believe him, but you believe a reporter?
I don't just believe a reporter. I believe the representatives of dozens of other European countries, and I believe
you don't have that, Rick. Rick, you do not have
I don't remember
representatives
what I
of
have, but
dozens
it
of
wasn't just one
European.
reporter.
You don't.
The consensus opinion is now the president could have had any number of reasons to say that there's no evidence that Shokin did anything wrong. I don't know why he said it. And, if you want
Maybe he
over
was
the
telling the
next
truth.
week, now hold on,
Rick.
over the next week, because I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to get in a yelly fucking fight with you, even though the show is yelly, because I'm not going to wake my wife up again. The deal is, you've got the president saying Shokin did nothing wrong. You've got me saying I read a bunch of shit a bunch of months ago about Shokin. Now let's fucking leave it there. I'll research it. I'll try to figure out if the president's right or if the reporting on Shokin was right. But for right now, let's fucking leave it there and move on to some other shit. Okay? If it's
Okay, no, actually, I have something to say about this. I'm sorry, I'm not going to have you blackmail me that you might wake up your wife again if I keep going. Now, I think that this is very important that we have an actual recording of the actual man that fired Shokin saying that he was not corrupt, and that means nothing to you. It's like it doesn't matter whatsoever. When it seems to me that that's the most important evidence. You don't need to read up. Don't interrupt me. It isn't necessary to go to your left-wing media and try to find lots of articles where left-wingers say, oh, Shokin was a very bad man. We have the actual recording of the actual man that fires him saying that he didn't do anything wrong, and Biden saying, great, I'll give you the money anyway.
all right, I'm going to say this, and then we're going to fucking move on.
How can you ignore that?
I'm not ignoring it. I just said I would look at it and I would fucking get back to you. But here's what I hear. I hear two representatives of their countries in a diplomatic relationship, the vice president of one country and I guess the president of the other country, having a discussion about policy between the two countries. And do I think that people are going to be completely honest in a conversation between two diplomatic representatives? I can think there can be all sorts of reasons why somebody can say something that may or may not be accurate. So if you give me a week, I'll get back to you. Maybe I'll find a bunch of sources that say that Shokin was a decent guy and there was all this other stuff going on. All I know is what I remember, what I read, and I've got this statement from the Ukraine president to Vice President Biden saying there's no evidence that Shokin was corrupt. So I'm going to still believe what I read previously, but give me a week and I'll do like a half hour during that week of reading about it, and then I'll get back to you. And maybe I've changed my mind with some shit with you. You tend not to, but there's a chance. Give me a chance to change my mind. Right now, my mind, I'm not persuaded.
Okay.
I'm not persuaded right now. And you can't persuade.
Okay. And I'm going to say this. I don't want you to waste a week, Rick. Don't waste a week. Because I know what's going to happen.
It's a half hour. It's a half hour of reading. I'm not going to waste a
don't even waste a half hour. You'll go to some left-wing sources. You'll go to the New York Times or Wikipedia, and you'll type in Shokin. And then it'll say, oh, Shokin was a very bad man. And then next week you'll say, you know what, Lance?
Here's what I'll do. I'll go to Breitbart. I'll go to conservative sources, too. I'll go to fucking conservative sources, too.
Okay, but why do you even need to? You just heard a report of the president saying You heard the actual sources, the principles, the real people. In other
Yeah,
words,
and I just
what
explained why
if
that
you
isn't
had a
necessary.
recording? If you had a recording of Winston Churchill having a private conversation with Franklin Roosevelt, wouldn't that be more credible than a book written by a guy that was biased 50 years later about
No, because
Churchill and Roosevelt?
those guys, those people each rule run they each govern separate countries with their own objectives, and they may have all sorts of reasons to not be completely forthright with each other. Fucking
Right. So your go-to assumption is that a secret conversation, a private conversation that was not meant to be released between Biden and the president of Ukraine, your go-to explanation is no, no, I don't believe that. The president of Ukraine must be lying. Everyone knows Shokin was corrupt. I read that he was corrupt. So when I hear this phone call, it means nothing to me. You just think that the president is lying. He's making it up. It makes no impact on your mind. In fact, you believe even more firmly that Shokin was corrupt, right?
no,
He's
but
even more corrupt than he
here's
was
the
before you
effect
heard
it
the
has. Here's the
conversation.
fucking effect it has. I'll do more reading, but like I mean, your example was FDR and Churchill. And fucking look at the history of the atomic bomb. Those guys were committing espionage, casual espionage. I mean, not full on spying on each other, but about the U.S. had the A bomb or was developing it. Britain wanted it to. The U.S. didn't want anybody else to have it. If they were talking about the A bomb, for instance, if you had a conversation between FDR and Churchill, um, those guys wouldn't be telling the truth to each other about it. Certainly, I mean, if you want to, I mean, there were three big Allied leaders: Stalin, Churchill, and FDR. And obviously, they had different objectives, and obviously, just their private conversations would, I would think, contain deception. Just because people are on the same side doesn't mean that you're going to be completely forthright if you're ruling different fucking countries. So I'll read up on it. That's the best you're going to get from me right now. And let's move on to something else.
Do I get the opportunity to scream and yell at how frustrated? I mean, do you realize that we just had a 10-minute vague detour into strange meanderings about World War II? I was just
You're
making
the
a
one who brought
simple
up fucking
point
World War
that
Churchill
a
and FDR.
that a mic I know I did that. I was trying to make an analogy. I was saying that I would rather hear a recording out of the mouths of the actual people, a secret recording out of the mouths of the actual people, than something written by a left winger that is meant to smear Shokin. So I'm sorry. Now, an actual recording doesn't mean as much to you. So, for all these reasons you've stated, you're convinced that there's a great chance that they're both lying. So, okay, fine, Rick. You know what? If I had the energy, I would scream at you, but I'm too beaten. I'm too fatigued and frustrated by this, so I'll let it go. Let's go on to another subject.
All right, so
Go ahead.
I want to talk about Sweden. I wanted to. Yeah, we can talk about that, but I want to talk about Sweden first. I wanted to talk about it last week because these statistics are from last week, and I didn't do it took a certain amount of work to dig them up. And I didn't want to do them. I didn't want to refresh. So anyway, these numbers are a week old. So we know we've talked about this. What Sweden did was basically not do any social distancing. They kind of let coronavirus run wild, hoping to get herd immunity. Right? Is that basically it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I looked up the numbers and I looked up their numbers versus the 8 countries that are closest to Sweden. And the 8 countries closest to Sweden: Denmark, Norway, Finland, Estonia, Lithuania, Iceland, Latvia, and Poland, have a combined death rate of 1/10 of Sweden's death rate. Sweden has a population of 10 million with 3,700 dead. The other 8 countries combined 60 million with 2,100 dead. So had Sweden, done what the other 8 countries had done, they maybe would have had 370 dead instead of 3,700 dead, which is a big difference. I mean, the other 8 countries combined was 6 times the population of Sweden, had 40% fewer total fatalities than Sweden.
Yeah. Rick, are you done?
Yep.
Okay. So here's the situation. As a reader of statistics, I'm really surprised. The most important number is deaths per million. Okay? Because when you're talking about a difference between 4,000 and 2,000, it's a very small number. In other words, if your RET is 2,000 or 4,000, it's a big difference. But if you've got 10 million people in a country, the difference between 4,000 and 2,000 is statistically insignificant.
Except it's still 2,000 fucking people.
Yeah, I know, and I know your compassion is astonishing to me. But what you should be doing is looking at deaths per million. Okay, that's the only real accurate way of seeing how a country is dealing with a problem. Now, according to deaths per million, Sweden is at 396 deaths per million. Give you an idea. Netherlands is at 340. Belgium is at 800.
Wait a
France
second.
is at 435.
Why are you putting Belgium in there? It's not close to. You're just picking Belgium because it's got high numbers. I picked the 8 adjacent.
Hey Rick, I've got an idea. Don't interrupt me. So let's go over that again because Rick interrupted me, and that's the rule. So Belgium is 801. Netherlands is 340. France is 435. Italy is 542. The UK is 542. Spain is 615. And the US is 300.
Mm-hmm.
So my
you're
point
mentioning
is
all the countries that did the shittiest at
okay, Rick, please don't interrupt me. So my point is, those are 6 or 7 countries that all locked down and destroyed their economies, and their deaths per million is roughly the same as Sweden's. Okay?
Well,
so
they destroyed their economies. So they destroyed their economy. So I looked at the economic effects of what Sweden did. Did they save their economy? So the Sweden stock index, as of last week, was down 21.4% compared to Poland, which is the largest of the 8 adjacent countries. They're down 25.2%. So Sweden maybe saved 3.8% off their stock market. Then I looked at unemployment. Poland's unemployment, we're at like 15% or more in the U.S. But Poland, which locked down, and we who locked down, locking down apparently wrecks the economy because everybody loses their job. Poland, who locked down, they're at 5.7% unemployment, and Sweden is between 7.2 and 8% unemployment. So locking down didn't help fucking Sweden's unemployment. Poland, it didn't save their fucking economy.
Rick, I can't believe
not
this.
Locking down.
Wait a minute. I can't believe I'm arguing with a man that knows math and is considered a great thinker. Listen to me, Rick.
Hold on.
Locking down ruins your economy. I don't have to prove that. Everybody that's listening to this is living through a fucking nightmare. Okay? The fact is that Sweden's economy might have gotten much worse had they locked down. Did you consider that?
Not so much, but the deal is that fucking
did you consider? No, hang on, Rick. The first question I would ask is, maybe Sweden's economy would have been infinitely worse if they did lock down. That's a reasonable question. But my point is that you seem to be ignoring is that 7 or 8 countries have a far worse deaths per million than Sweden does.
Yeah,
There are some that are better.
you mentioned the 10 countries in the world that have the 10 developed countries in the world that have the shittiest deaths per million. The UK, the US.
Yes, I did. I did. And my point was apparently went over your head. What I'm saying is, even the countries that I mentioned that locked down have a worse death per million than Sweden. So locking down does not mean that they would have helped, that would have solved anything. They wouldn't have had. Do you understand that the deaths per million is worse in countries that did lock down? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because they had to lock down because they let it because of a bad initial response. Italy.
No. Rick, you can't say that. Don't start blaming Trump. And you've got plenty of countries that did worse than Sweden, and they still locked down. They destroyed their economy.
Well, fucking the UK didn't lock down, and they've got a horrible rate. Now they're pretty much locked down because
they did lock down.
Not early on. No, they fucking didn't. No, they didn't. They didn't lock down early on.
They didn't lock down adequately for you, but they did lock down. The point is that all these countries...
2 months in, they locked down. The UK tried to do the herd immunity thing for like 3 weeks, and then they started getting hammered, and they locked down.
I remember, but other countries locked down and did worse than Sweden. Many important countries. I mentioned them. Some did better. Some didn't. But
some got hit early before they knew to lock down. Italy was the first country to get hammered. And they didn't know to fucking lock down until it was too late. But I can mention the 8 adjacent countries that locked down next to Sweden. Denmark. Sweden, 370 deaths per million. Denmark, 94. Norway, 43. Finland, 54. Estonia, 4 deaths per million. Lithuania, 21. Poland, 24. Latvia, 10. Everybody who caught it early and did some fucking public health early was able to have 1/10 the death rate of Sweden. So the not locking down, the herd immunity, going for herd immunity, doesn't fucking work.
Well, it does work because if you're talking about 4,000 dead in a country of 10 million...
Wait, so hold on. I got to move the...
That's an acceptable number of deaths.
I don't know. I bet you
because that's a normal flu season, Rick. 4,000 dead. You don't shut down. Rick, I don't know if you could see me, but you don't shut down an economy of 10 million people for 4,000 deaths. So Sweden still did the right thing.
Economy, but you still your stock market still takes a 21% hit, and you still have over 7% unemployment compared to a country that does lock down right next door to fucking Sweden that has less unemployment and their stock market only drops 4% more.
Okay, Rick, it's easy to find a country or a couple countries that did better than Sweden did. Okay, and I found 8 that did worse.
Yeah, you listed the 8 worst countries or 10 worst countries in the developed world.
Yeah, and you listed the 8 best. It proves nothing.
I listed the 8 countries that are next to fucking Sweden.
Sweden is very close to the countries I mentioned. Okay, Rick. Europe is a lot smaller than you think. Okay.
Yeah, everything's close to everything else in fucking Europe.
Okay, so my point is that if you're arguing to me that we need to lock down the country till the middle of September, which is what the mayor of Los Angeles said, then I think that your story about Sweden is not good evidence, because in a country of 10 million, I will take 4,000 deaths to keep people doing what they're going to do. I haven't mentioned...
All right.
Rick,
All right, we got to move on
Rick,
because my computer is losing battery. We got to keep going. Um, I've got just a few minutes
I
left
would just
before
like
the
to say,
battery dies. I can't. Go ahead.
well, I would like to say that I don't think an epidemic is a good enough reason for the United States to lock down. I know that people will die. I know that people will get sick. It's not a good enough reason. It never has been in my lifetime, and it's proving not to be right now. Because half of the deaths in the country were elderly people that died because Democrat governors put COVID positive patients in the rest homes with them. And then if someone was lucky enough to get out of there and get to a hospital, Democrat governors like Cuomo hoarded 70,000 doses of hydroxychloroquine, but he wouldn't let anybody that was sick use it. So my argument is, if this is all examples of Democrat bungling, the number of deaths in the country, 80% of the people that have died in Democrat states. The Republican states have lost about 15,000 people. And that's not enough to shut down the country. We shut down the country because of Democrat stupidity.
All right. So are we going to argue about, I don't know, maybe you could maybe say, I don't know, 15, 20% of the deaths were maybe due to policy decisions in those states regarding old people. But we're not done. We're at 100,000 dead. And we lose between 1,000 and 2,000 a day. So by election day, we're looking at, even if we only lose 1,000 people a day, we're looking at more than 250,000 dead by election day. That's a lot of people.
The numbers are going down, Rick.
They are, but are they going to stay down? I don't know. We were up above 2,000 every day. Now we're in the 1,000 to 1,500 range every day. Okay, hydrochloroquine. You're still going to fucking go to bat for hydrochloroquine, even though the new studies coming out, including one that included 96,000 patients, 14,000 of them got the hydrochloroquine, says that not only didn't it help, but it increased mortality by 45%. Now,
okay, there was
I've read analysis.
There was a study in New York. There was a study in New York that came out this week that said that hydroxychloroquine increased your chance of survival by 44%. I can find that study for you if you want.
No, I saw it. That study had
Rick.
900 people. Yeah? That study had 900 people, 411 of who, now wait, so 411 of, they all got hydrochloroquine, the 900. 411 of them got hydrochloroquine plus zinc, and their death rates were lower than the people who just got hydrochloroquine. Now, it didn't compare people who got hydrochloroquine to people who didn't. So, I mean, that's a different study, but it looks like hydrochloroquine plus zinc is more effective than hydrochloroquine alone. Another study that just came out even more recently was of 96,000 people, 14,000 of whom got the hydrochloroquine. I'm not sure about zinc, but they found that it killed a shitload more people due to heart effects. So the consensus, and we're still waiting on more studies, but the consensus right now is that it's not helpful and it's probably dangerous.
Rick, one of the things about COVID, about the Wuhan virus, is that it attacks the heart. So once it attacks the heart, there is no medication. Okay, hydroxychloroquine and zinc don't work at the later stages of the disease. Okay, so All of the studies say the same thing. And in fact, I was telling this to you 6 weeks ago that hydroxychloroquine is a shorthand name for hydroxychloroquine plus zinc. And if necessary, Z-Pak, depending on the way the patient reacts. So, which is azithromycin. So all studies on hydroxychloroquine now use zinc. If you ever read a study that says it only used hydroxychloroquine, the drug doesn't work unless it's with zinc. Okay? Now, my point is this. The governor of New York got 70,000 doses of it. We know this for a fact. And then he made it extremely difficult for anybody to use it. They've been using it in like studies. But by the time they finish doing all the studying, more people, more tens of thousands of people in New York will be dead. So my point is that if you took all the Democrat stupidity out of this, we would have about a third of the dead that we have now, because it was the Democrats that put the COVID patients into the rest homes. 80% of the deaths are from rest homes and people of that age, and it's the Democrats that have made it illegal for doctors to give people hydroxychloroquine in several of these states. So not only did they cause many of these, the majority of the deaths, but then when there was a sliver of a possibility that we had a cure, the Democrats, like yourself, by the way, refused to give hydroxychloroquine to the people that were sick.
Yeah, more and more studies show that it's of limited help, and certainly not any help if, as you just had said, if the disease is anywhere far along, it's not going to help. And if you do the math, that the number of people, if you do the math on who died where, we've got 100,000 dead. I think probably the most you can hang on the New York governor's decision to allow people who are positive into old age homes. I think at the very most you might be able to hang 20,000 of the 100,000 on that decision. But I don't know. I'd have to look at the numbers. So you can't hold me to that. It's certainly not 2/3 of everybody. It's certainly,
Yeah. 80% of the people that have died are over 65, and about half of those people died in this because they were in rest homes where COVID patients had been allowed in various states, not just Democrat New York, but Pennsylvania, I believe Michigan, and one other major state, California.
So it wasn't all Democrats making it.
No, the Republicans didn't go along with it. I read about it. It was kind of interesting. At the time,
if you read about it, you can send me the article, right? And I can read it.
No. I'll tell you what. On March 25th, the decision was made by several governors, all Democrats, to make it mandatory to put COVID patients into rest homes and places where the elderly were. They would make it illegal for the rest homes or the senior living homes to refuse COVID patients. This decision was made by four Democrat governors.
And it led to thousands of deaths and probably tens of thousands of deaths.
Correct. Yes, it did.
Okay.
Yes, it did. And then I got off the phone with a guy in New York, off the internet with a guy in New York, who said that he had seen some people die. And I said, really? Were they allowed to get hydroxychloroquine? He said, no. They've made it illegal in New York with all kinds of red tape. And so the people in New York that might be benefiting from this drug are not allowed to because of Democrat suspicion of hydroxychloroquine.
Because at the most optimistic spin based on all the studies that are coming in is that if it's going to be of help, it's only going to be of help in the very earliest stages, right?
Well, actually, Rick, when you have symptoms, when you present at the hospital or to your doctor in New York, you're still able to walk, you're able to get into the hospital, your son or your daughter drives you in there and brings you in. In New York, if you say, listen, I think I'm coming down with a COVID, can you please give me hydroxychloroquine and zinc? The New York governor, the Democrats in these states have made it illegal. Okay?
Okay, all right.
And
Okay,
so
so let's
what I'm
move on.
saying is this,
I've got.
not only are they killing people, but they're making it impossible for people to even try a drug that might save them.
All right, fine. So
That's
let's
not
move on. I don't.
scientific, is it, Rick? That's not science.
What? Not
We
letting
have a
people.
law in this country called we have a law in this country called the right to try. And that means when you have an illness that might kill you, you have a right to try a drug, even if it hasn't gone through 5 years of extensive testing. You see, the reason for that and the reason for the new FDA decision,
I
the
know you don't
FDA
have to fucking
a
go into
month
all
ago
the.
approved that under emergency situations like we're in right now, you don't need 5 years of testing. So the FDA has approved hydroxychloroquine for emergency situations like this one. So it is
All right,
approved.
this is another thing, and
But the
we're almost
Democrats
out.
won't
I'm
even
almost
let
out of
people try
battery.
it.
But the deal is, I want to talk about one more thing. But I'm gonna. The deal is, read up on hydroxychloroquine yourself. Look at the studies, and then you guys out there fucking decide um, whether it's helpful or not. The studies I've read, for the most part, show that it's more dangerous than it is helpful. I want to talk about the
Okay,
Karen
and
thing. Are you familiar with the Karen thing, Lance? Are you familiar with the
no,
term Karen? Okay.
no.
There's a thing all over Twitter about Karens. A Karen is a middle-aged white lady with a K+8 haircut who gets pissed about basically nothing about any limits put on her behavior and goes crazy and wants to speak to the manager and throws a tantrum. And I actually had a Karen moment with my wife yesterday. Um, we drove to Pasadena because she wanted to go to a restaurant and get a takeout meal that included this salad she really likes. And we've been waiting weeks and months into this lockdown to go there because it's a huge trip. It's 25 miles to Pasadena and 20 miles. But we went, and I wanted to stop at Michael's, the craft store. Now, you know what? Craft stores are people who've experienced disappointments in the rest of their life and they find solace in doing crafts. But my local Michael's craft store has shut down because they're on the second floor and they can't do curbside pickup because they don't have a curb. So I put my order in to Michael's, and we were told we could come pick up my shit because that's what you do. You do curbside pickup of your order. So we go there, and even though we were told my shit would be ready to pick up from Michael's, it wasn't ready. So we go pick up the shit at the Pasadena Michael's. So we drive half a mile to the restaurant, we pick up our dinners, and we go back to Michael's. And we're in our car, and Carol starts losing her shit. And we're like, can we talk to the manager? And Carol's getting pretty pissed off. At one point, she was yelling. And I'm annoyed, but I'm not annoyed at the people working there. Because it's not their fault that shit's all fucked up. And also because I've been inoculated against being an asshole by seeing all these tapes of Karens on Twitter, because somebody always whips out a phone and catches the Karen being an asshole. And in the middle of all this, Carol stops and says, "What, are you being the good cop in this?" And I'm like, kinda. But the deal with Carol is she was Karening, but I kind of feel like she had a reason, which is Carol's had sciatica for 2 weeks, so she hasn't slept in weeks. Sciatica is this back pain that makes your leg feel like it's on fire. And the only thing that would give her relief was taking hot baths, but she took so many scalding baths that she roasted her skin, so now she's itching all over. And also, when Carol doesn't eat, she gets a big gas bubble in her stomach. So Carol is Karening because she's sitting in our car waiting for Michaels to see if they can get us our shit, but her leg's on fire, all of her skin below her neck is itching, and she's got a huge painful gas bubble because she hasn't been able to eat the salad that she got. So I don't know. Any thoughts on Karening, Lance? Because really, there's an issue here about freedom not to wear a mask or not to not wear a mask, and people going Karen these days.
Well, I just read something, I just read the headline, but according to some doctors, they're getting 4 times the number of suicides that they normally would have by now. So the lockdown is causing deaths itself. So in other words, it's true that we're losing people to COVID, but we're also losing people to suicide. And there are a lot more, when people are cooped up together, it's turning out that there's a lot more wife abuse and child abuse. And, you know, when people lose their jobs and they go into depressions, they get suicidal and they commit crimes. So we're going to find out that the fascist totalitarian policies of the blue states, which have continued the lockdown, is going to be worse for the country than if we had had 10% more deaths from Wuhan. It looks like as of this moment,
more, when you say 10% more deaths.
Hang, Rick, as of this moment, if you look at a map, there are maps being drawn up of the states, and it looks like all the blue states have maintained the lockdown, and all the red states are opening up. That's how it's going. Now, there are exceptions. There might be, maybe Colorado is opening up a little bit. But the point is that the red states...
48 states are opening up to some extent.
Yeah, I know. Rick, you're reading left-wing garbage again. I've tried to warn you about this. When the New York Times... Unfortunately, I had to read that dirt. I had to read the New York Times. And what it does is, if Gruesome Newsom, the governor of California, opens up bike trails in the desert, then the New York Times says California is opening up. Okay? So the truth is, the states that are actually ending the lockdown, where you can eat at a restaurant, and you can go back to your job, and you can get a haircut, and your kids will be hopefully soon be able to go to a school. Those states are the Republican states. The Democrat states are going to continue the lockdown indefinitely, according to their own words. Illinois, for example, a Democrat state, has decided to stay locked down until there's a cure. The mayor of Los Angeles, the little rat Garcetti, says that he wants to keep Los Angeles locked down until there's a cure. He said the health minister of the city wants to keep LA closed until September, and he said it might be beyond that. So I don't know why you're voting Democrat. I'll tell you why, because you love the lockdown. If you love the lockdown, you vote Democrat. Because get used to sciatica, Rick. Get used to your wife being miserable, because that's what the Democrats have done to you. Not only did they lie about Trump for 3 years, but they've actually ruined your life. They've locked you down in a form of control that is unknown outside of North Korea. I can't even leave the fucking house without wearing a contraption on my face when there's no science whatsoever that you can get this virus by walking outside on the beach. There's no science behind it. It's
Well,
just
yeah, I mean, there has to be
these little
somebody there.
Democrat tyrants.
There has to be somebody.
No, Rick. If somebody walks by me on the beach, there's
Yeah.
no science that says I'm going to get Wuhan from them. No science.
Well,
This
there is
is
no.
just
Yeah. Okay. So
insanity.
I don't disagree. I mean, it depends on what is happening between you and the other person, but two people walking by each other 6 feet away are the odds that one of them is going to transmit Wuhan to the other one if you're going in opposite directions are pretty low. I mean, they're not zero, but it's
Rick, they're not worth shutting the city of Los Angeles down. We have 33% unemployment, Rick. And now you may have had a bad experience with your wife, and I'm sorry for that. But in Torrance, I've had 3 violent incidents, including a murder right in front of me.
You
Since
saw
this
somebody
happened,
get killed.
I got there 5 minutes after, maybe
Why did the
2 minutes
person?
after.
Why did the person get? Was it a mask issue? What was the deal?
Rick, it's not the only violent incident I have experienced in the past 2 weeks. There has been physical violence in Torrance at a level I've never seen. And it's because of you Democrats. Do you
I don't know.
understand? Your
Torrance
zeal.
is not a fucking garden spot. Torrance is a pretty killy place. I remember a couple of years ago there was a shootout at your mall.
Rick, don't make jokes. It's never been this bad. And it's because the Democrats are going to put 33% of people out of work in this city. They don't, in order to save maybe 50 lives from the COVID, they're going to cause this city to go into a depression like we've never had before. So what you're experiencing with your wife is a microcosm of what's going on all over the state.
What,
Because of
my wife has a
Democrat
hurdy back
insanity.
and she yells at a fucking Michaels manager?
Well, why do you think she has sciatica? Isn't part of that psychological from stress?
No, I would say it is associated with, in her case, actually no, she got a back cramp that tweaked her back and probably pinched a nerve and triggered the sciatica. Sciatica is not a stress thing. Sciatica is a fucking physical thing. About, I don't know, between 40 and 80% of adults get it at some point. It's fucking a pinched nerve in nerves leading off your spine into your lower body. But I will
Do
say
you
that
think
it's
she would
probably been exacerbated by all the fucking binge watching we're doing, because our posture while we're on the couch watching Netflix is not the best.
That is
And so she had to
precisely
start.
my point. That is precisely my
All right,
point.
but like, so she's working from home for her school. She's still, I mean, her job is still there. She's still working for her school
If
every day.
if
But
she had
she's had to
carried out
move to a different chair where she sits up straighter.
if she had carried out her normal activities where her body had been used the way it normally is, she would not have had sciatica. She's getting it
You
from
can't say
this
that, because I
lockdown.
was there when she got her back cramp. She was lying in bed when she got a back cramp. So she wasn't
Right,
fucking binge watching.
because you guys are binge watching. You're not carrying out your normal lives.
I mean, it's possible,
I'm
but
sitting more too, Rick. Everybody is. Everybody is going through the same thing. We're all fucked up. My back's not feeling the same as it did 3 months ago either,
okay.
because they won't let us carry on our normal lives. And my concern is that you're going to vote for Newsom or Garcetti because they're not racist, or they who knows what it is. But if this doesn't even occur to you that maybe we should elect Republicans like they have in Florida and Texas, where the states are opening up and people are able to live their lives.
Well, Florida, we'll see what happens in Florida and Texas and Georgia, all of whom have Republican governors. And fucking Arkansas, which I assume has, where they were having, did you see the video of the giant pool party at Lake of the Ozarks?
Okay, Rick,
Anyway, we'll
here's
see
what
what
the
happens.
Democrats are doing. Here's what the Democrats are doing, okay? For some reason, the Democrats want to keep you locked up. I don't even know exactly why, but they do. So they keep releasing articles about Texas and Florida and Arkansas and Georgia saying that it's a zombie apocalypse in those states.
It's
But if
not
you
yet,
look at
but
the worldometer of deaths per million, all of those states are doing much better than California, which is completely locked down.
we'll see because I know that like well Florida for instance fired its the person who created their coronavirus statistics page.
Uh,
Every state has its
more
corona,
okay,
so we'll
more
see. I
left-wing
mean,
lies.
it's not
Rick,
they fired
Rick,
her. She's been
they
on fucking TV.
Rick, Rick. I know, because the Democrats are trying to make Florida look bad so that you will stay in your house with Carol, and the two of you will be miserable. What is happening in Florida? You go to the world meter. You look at USA. You look at the
World O
states.
meter.
Okay, Florida's deaths per million is roughly the same as California. Well, except that in Florida, if it's been open for several weeks, by now there should be piles of bodies.
There
Where
are
are the piles of
Florida. If
bodies?
you die in Florida in a nursing home, you don't get entered into their. Even if you die of COVID in a nursing home, they're not. Florida's only including, as far as I know, there have been only if you die of COVID in a hospital. So the Florida and Georgia, I'm not sure about Texas, but Florida and Georgia's death numbers look like they're not complete. So, and
And that's what the Democrats told you.
well, no, I mean that's what freaking if
Why
you
do you
look at the
think the
statistics.
Democrats want you to? No, that's not. That's just a Democrat lie.
No, because no, if
It's
you
just a
look at if you
Democrat
do
lie.
the actual fucking no, if you do the hold on, if you do the math, and so instead of looking at a, so I looked at the worldometer.
You froze. You froze. Now, I'm going to end the show and thank you guys for enduring another couple hours of us. We do try really hard to get our facts straight but I do read the comments. So, and our director does. So anyway, thanks for everything. Bye.